Beats by Banner.
Ruben Joseph, who was from the borough of Hackney in London, who was also known as Lionheart, was born the 28th of November 1959. At the young age of 11, he began learning Ryu karate, I hope I pronounced that correctly, which was up the road from where he lived in Stoke Newington at the time. It was because of his brother why he took up the art. It was his brother who introduced him to karate. Ruben really enjoyed the karate. It was at that point martial arts started to grow as a huge interest within his heart. He was dedicated and trained intensively until one day he realized there was no contact within the sessions of sparring. This was something that slowly began to bother him. He would question why there was no contact, but the inquiries he had to this issue made no difference. No contact was the way things were in the classes he attended. Although this frustrated him, he continued turning up to his lessons to learn. It was whilst doing karate that he met Godfrey Donnelly. I hope I pronounced his surname correctly. Godfrey is somebody who Ruben described as being supreme in his abilities. Godfrey later on in the years took up Tai Chi and further down the line of his life experience became my teacher at the school he was running in Stoke Newington called the Three Treasures School of Wudang Tai Chi Chuan. It was from Godfrey I began learning Wudang Tai Chi Yang style. Whilst I was attending his classes, one day we spoke about the martial arts I had done in the past. This conversation was sparked by him asking if I had trained in Wing Chun. He was able to tell by the way I flowed, whilst he had us practicing what was called pushing hands. Pushing hands is a form of sticky hands within Tai Chi. When I made mention of my study in WayLing, it was at this point I gained knowledge of him knowing Ruben as well as my father, both of which he highly respected. I knew this because he spoke well of them. He also explained to me how good they were within their martial art abilities. Back to Uncle Ruben. Many years on, Ruben met a Chinese man whom he got to know as Brian Lau. Brian Lau was one of the younger students of late Master Yip Man, alongside his late martial arts brother Bruce Lee, long before he established Jeet Kune Do and became a world sensation. Brian Lau lived with his wife and son within the same building as Auntie Marjorie, who was Uncle Ruben's partner. Uncle Ruben and Auntie Marjorie resided there together. This was within the London Fields area, near an old nightclub called All Nations. Brian Lau may have had two sons. I can't actually remember what Uncle Ruben had told me regarding his son or sons. Whilst living there, Ruben would go out into the garden every day, numerous times of the day as well as within the night, and practice his karate, unbeknown that Brian Lau secretly watched him whilst he trained. One day, whilst Ruben was in the garden practicing, Brian Lau came out and stood there to watch. It was on this particular day that Brian Lau decided to make it known he had been watching him for a while and respected his dedication. This did not faze Ruben in any way, as he knew his neighbour, and so he continued on. Whilst continuing to train, Brian Lau asked Ruben what martial art it was he was practicing. Ruben told him it was karate. Brian Lau then challenged Ruben to hit him. Ruben, whilst looking at him in wonder as to whether or not he was being serious or not, asked him, "What do you mean hit you?" Brian Lau said, "Try and hit me." So he did. Brian Lau blocked every strike. Ruben tried again, but still was unable to touch him. It was at this point Ruben began throwing multiple punches and kicks, but wasn't successful in touching Brian Lau. Not even once did Ruben manage to get even near. Ruben was amazed by this, and within his thoughts, he began to scrutinize what he had been learning all these years. He also expressed his concerns to Brian Lau. Before this particular day, Uncle Ruben had no idea this man who lived in the same building knew any form of martial art. Ruben asked what it was Brian Lau was training in. It was then that Brian Lau thought it was right to apprise Ruben of what he did. Brian Lau disclosed himself as being a Wing Chun and Tai Chi master. In Ruben being impressed as well as intrigued by what he saw, he wanted to learn. Brian Lau took him on as a student. They also became good friends. From that day forward, Ruben was diligently taught every day. Brian Lau also had his son teach Ruben Lama, Ape, and Crane Kung Fu, as well as the inch punch. Eventually, after many dedicated years of learning karate, Ruben gave it up. He burnt his karate top and any belts he achieved along the way, but kept the bottoms and dyed them the color black. The training was insane, bearing in mind he was learning multiple arts simultaneously. The daily training consisted of Wing Chun, Tai Chi, Ape, and the Crane, as well as Lama. I recall Auntie Marjorie telling me whenever it was time for training, Brian Lau would knock on their door and Uncle Ruben would need to be ready to train. Sometimes it would be early hours of the morning and they would hear Brian Lau knocking. No matter the time, Uncle Ruben had to be ready. Years passed on and Ruben was improving well in what he was being taught. Brian Lau was proud of how well he was taking it all in. Ruben at this point was feeling great, feeling right within his element, because he felt that now he had finally found someone who can teach him the type of levels of training he had always wanted and more. Until one day, there was no knock on the door. Throughout the whole day, there was no knocking. No knocking was heard. This was strange to Ruben, who now had a gut feeling something was wrong. He eventually knocked Brian Lau's door and did so a number of times, but received no response. Sadly, it eventually became known that Brian Lau and his family had been deported back to China. This left Uncle Ruben feeling lost, angry, frustrated, as well as sad. All of a sudden, lessons came to a stop. He'd lost his teacher and someone that became a good friend to him. Uncle Ruben was left wondering what he was to do next. He continued practicing all he was taught by Brian Lau and his son. He practiced every day without fail with the intent to not only improve upon what he had learnt, but also to refine it all until it became as natural to him as the brushing of teeth or walking. Eventually, he desired more. He wanted to take his martial arts abilities even further, but felt there was nobody who could push him into this direction. Although he learnt a great amount of the different martial arts styles from Brian Lau and his son, he also knew within himself he hadn't learnt the complete system of any of them. In Ruben's mind, he also knew he wanted to teach others. He felt he wanted others to also benefit from what he had learnt. Ruben also knew he couldn't claim to be a Wing Chun teacher or a Tai Chi teacher because he didn't know the whole thing. He knew he couldn't call himself a teacher of the crane style, ape or the llama style because he didn't learn the whole system of those arts either. This prompted Ruben in his dedication to create his own martial art. He then began watching as much footage as he possibly could on snakes, cranes, apes and llamas, trying to figure out how they moved when fighting within the animal kingdom for survival, and implemented those things as close to their movements as he could. Ruben also studied the animal styles from martial art films. This led him into implementing the peeling fist, which some call leopard, and phoenix. In knowing that films were many times exaggerated in the presentation of the arts, he made it his duty to ensure he transferred what he was implementing was applicable to real life. He made sure it could be applied to real life situations. When he felt confident enough with putting all of this together as one art, he went out testing it. Ruben had many fights with other martial artists, some of which were teachers with schools. Some fights were those he initiated, whilst others were challenges presented to him. His art was developing quickly because he had enough opportunities to test out its effectiveness. He was able to establish where the strengths and weaknesses were. Each time Ruben fought and sparred, he recorded within his mind how it all went, what worked, what didn't, what needed throwing away, what needed improving upon, etc. He also took techniques from those he fought or sparred with if he felt it was a deadly and effective move. During this time he continued to practice, but now he was practicing while simultaneously throwing things out and implementing other things, sharpening his tools and strengthening his toolbox. Ruben was not satisfied until he felt his art was at a level he could be proud of. His passion was strong. Although Ruben learnt Wing Chun forms and some weapons, he only implemented the Silam Tao form, but made his own version of it. He also threw out the practice of weapons. As far as he was concerned, how often would he be walking around with nunchucks, swords and 6-foot bow sticks? Unless he was planning to go into film or on stage putting on a performance for entertainment, he didn't see the use. He thought it was more important to develop the body's natural weaponry, as these are the things you have within you at your disposal at all times. He also went into boxing and became an amateur fighter, winning belts and trophies. He had the opportunity to go professional, but knew if he did, he would have to spend less time on his founding art. And so he gave up the boxing and instead implemented what he had learnt from boxing into his creation. Uncle Ruben closed down a number of schools by way of pupils leaving and requesting that he taught them after witnessing their teachers being defeated by him in combat. One of the places was a karate dojo my father went to. I recall my dad telling me the story of how Uncle Ruben came bursting through the door to challenge his sensei because he was being disrespectful to Uncle Ruben's art, saying it was no good and how karate was superior to it. When Uncle Ruben stepped foot in that dojo, which was located in Hackney, the sensei sent students to fight Uncle Ruben, whom Uncle Ruben dealt with effortlessly. The sensei was then called out by Uncle Ruben. The karate sensei was told, "I came for you." This sensei was fortunate to not have been terribly embarrassed by getting beaten up by Uncle Ruben. Instead, Uncle Ruben was lenient on him by having the challenge be a attack for an attack, a technique for a technique thing. He was fortunate to have been given the option. After making him look like a fool in front of his students, Uncle Ruben left. Students of that dojo left with him, including my dad. Uncle Ruben's teachings began in his home with those whom he accepted as students. I'm unsure of the year he actually began to teach his art to the public after establishing it, but he taught multitudes of students. The influx was very high. Some even had to be on a waiting list. The number of people who wanted to learn grew immensely. This led him to stop teaching from home and instead start teaching in various venues. Nobody was able to learn without first giving him good reason as to why they wanted to be taught. People's intentions were placed under a magnifying glass. If the intentions were not seen to be pure, they were turned away. People travelled from far to make his classes. Even the police at one point requested he taught the police force because they knew about him and his abilities. This was before they started taking up techniques from jiu-jitsu. He declined their requests because he did not want it in their hands. He did not want them using it to take advantage and abuse people with it. Uncle Ruben never heard from Brian Lau again, which was upsetting to him, but he was also grateful to him, for if it wasn't for Brian Lau and his son, he may not have taken martial arts to where he did. Ruben remembered Brian Lau always speaking of no way as way and no limitation as a limitation, and so he coined the words way and limitation and came up with a name that would remind him of the quote Brian Lau would always speak on, as well as coming up with the name as a reminder of him and his son as his teachers. They were part of the reason why his art was born. Uncle Ruben crowned his founded martial arts with the name WayLing. After Brian Lau was deported, Uncle Ruben always spoke of trying to find Brian Lau to reconnect. Sadly, Uncle Ruben passed away May 24th, 2011 by way of cancer. He didn't manage to achieve the reconnection. Rest in power, Uncle Ruben.
Apparently he and our instructor had some kind of argument.
Yeah.
Saying that karate and kung fu was rubbish. It was pansy and, you know.
Yeah.
Because the only person who knew to do kung fu was Bruce Lee at the time.
That's right, yeah. I heard that.
And he was pansy and all womanly fine and, you know. So we said, well, you know, I'll show you. It's not. So the Chris Rowan.
Yeah.
Says, well, you come down to my class and says, well, he came down there. We didn't know nothing about it. Actually, you know, training.
Right.
So we're there doing our thing in the class.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, bang!
Serious.
Turn around and the door swing open and there's this guy standing there, all black outfit, or kung fu outfit, should I say. And another guy standing there. There's three of them. I know there's two of them.
Yeah.
But they're standing there. And they're staring at the class. So we thought, well, this is some kind of joke business. You know?
Yeah, that's right.
But when you looked in his eyes, you could see he was joking. He was not joking, you know what I mean? The eyes were just telling the story.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, what is this? So he called us all together and said, well, this guy's coming in and Ainsley, both will have the best in the class.
Right.
Ainsley, go forward. And I used to do some techniques and see if we can block it and things.
Yeah.
Not knowing why, but I've been instructed to go and do it. I went and do it. It made me look stupid. It's blocked everything I gave to it.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, somebody else, the second person in the class, they also went.
Yeah. Same thing.
Same thing. Man.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And you know to yourself, when you touch this guy, he was solid. He was quick. He knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like this is this ain't weird, this is weird, this ain't real.
Yeah.
So in the end, Ruben sort of said, as Ruben did, Ruben, this subtle, this, I don't come here for you guys, you are come for. And you're thinking, what?
Yeah.
You are come for, you come. Anyway, what happened? Chris fired some kicks after him. Yeah. And Ruben had to block them.
Right.
And no bang, blocking the kicks. So after 2 kicks, Ruben then said to him, all right, you block one of my blocks now. So we're still thinking, what is all this? It looks like child stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. But they were trying to prove a point to each other. Yeah. Who was the more superior, karate or judo or whatever. And the different blocks they're having in.
Oh, so you was doing judo at the time then?
Sorry, karate or kung fu. Yeah. And as the judo I did another time.
Yeah, that's,
I did that before.
Okay. Yeah.
And Ruben gave 1 kick. The guy couldn't block it. Yeah. And you know the old time radiators,
the jagged ones, yeah.
That really was it. And then he kicked him. He tried to block it. Whether he blocked it or not, I can't tell. But the touch that he touched it to try and block it. Yeah. And in karate, it's all power.
That's right.
Coming down. I did that. It just took him right back.
Bang, straight up into the
against the radiator. Wow. And spiky figures. Yeah. And it's like he didn't want to show how.
That's right.
He's trying to come off the radiator. Yeah. And it's like, whoa.
Rest in power, Uncle Grandmaster Ruben Joseph. Rest in power, Lionheart.